What's going on, guys? It's Red Bull Tanker, and welcome back to Axis and Allies 1940. This is turn 3 for the Axis powers. Alright, so we'll start in Europe as always. Kind of just go down the list of things. Well, let's see if I can try and keep it more condensed. We kind of jumped around when we did combat a little bit. So first, okay. First we'll start up here in Italy. So the Germans and the Italians came back and took northern Italy. They killed the British infantry and tank that was there, and they lost an infantry along the way. Let's see here. Next. These two German fighters came into C-Zone 95 and killed the British transport that was just sitting there. Next. The Italians gathered up their whole fleet. It was a destroyer, 2 cruisers, a repaired battleship. They brought in 2 fighters, that bomber, and then the Axis. The Germans also loaned 2 strategic bombers and went after the British Navy that was here in C-Zone 98. In preparatory for landing forces from southern Italy into Alexandria to meet up with the rest of the Italian army that was going in against the British infantry. For the C-Zone 98 battle, the Allies lost three destroyers, 2 cruisers, and then the Brits had scrambled 2 fighters out of Egypt to the battle as well. The Italians lost their destroyer, both cruisers, and then, as you can see, the battleship was damaged. And because they cleared the zone, they went into the zone in Alexandria. They killed the British infantry, but the British infantry didn't go down without a fight and took out 1 Italian infantry as well. Alright, so that was it for the Mediterranean North Africa campaign. Not much else happened. Nothing happened here around Western Europe. So now we go over to the Soviet Union. Alright, so in the Soviet Union, the Soviets took their 11 infantry and 3 artillery from East Poland and attacked 1 Soviet infantry that was holding the door in western Ukraine. They killed that infantry, but the Russian didn't go down without a fight and took out 1 German infantry. Let's see here next. So then we go to the far north. Oops. So we go to the far north up here. The Germans walked in on Vyborg, walked in on Karelia. So the Germans are very much on the offensive in the north there. And then finally, the Germans came in, did a sea battle. Oh, no, they didn't do the sea battle. That happened last turn. So the Germans came in and did 1 massive push to take Leningrad from the Soviets. They did have their battleship and cruiser for offshore bombardment. The bombardment, they got 1 hit, so they took out a Russian AAA gun. And then the 1 remaining AAA gun that the Russians had was able to knock out a German fighter. All in all, the casualties from the battle were the Russians lost 14 infantry, 1 artillery, 1 tank, and then their last remaining AAA. And then the Germans lost 4 infantry and 5 tanks. And then they were able to still keep Novgorod, or they were able to still take Leningrad away from the Russians. So the war in Europe is definitely taking some twists and turns. Russia is kind of in a bind. I mean, we still have the bulk of the Russian army here in Bryansk on the major army card right there. So the Russians still have a force. The German army, I won't say is entirely weak, but they definitely don't have, how do I want to say it? they don't have a lot to back themselves up with, if that makes sense. I mean, they have these 10 infantry and 3 artillery here in western Ukraine. They have these 6 infantry and artillery in this Italian artillery in Romania. They have 6 tanks here in the Baltics. I mean, they still have a massive air force. And then they just have this tank. So, I mean, I guess if the Russians can succeed in if the Russians can succeed in their combats this turn, they could very much blunt the wing of a good chunk of Operation Barbarossa. But we will just have to see. So let's move over to the Chinese theater of war. For the most part, the Japanese, for the Japanese point, they've pretty much ended all Chinese resistance. They smashed the remaining Chinese defenders here in Sichuan. The Japanese killed 9 Chinese infantry and took out the Flying Tigers, though the Chinese did not go down without a fight and killed 4 infantry and an artillery. Then the Japanese did combat for Senshi. They killed a Chinese infantry, but that Chinese infantry didn't go down without a fight and managed to kill 1 infantry there too. These 2 artillery are actually supposed to be in here. And then this infantry and artillery walked on to Kansu. Alright, now the big news. Japan went in and declared war on the United States. Starting off, they came down here and took the Philippines, or they came down here and attacked the Philippines. The U.S. had a destroyer transport in Sea Zone 35. The Japanese came in with a submarine. Submarine and this strategic bomber. And they won the sea battle. And then why am I forgetting everything? But then they made landfall in the Philippines. Oh, there was a fighter supporting. If I remember correctly, there also was a fighter supporting the attack there. Oh no, it was another bomber. So they went in so Japan went into the full Philippines attack with a submarine, a transport, 2 bombers, an infantry, and an artillery. So like I said, they won the sea battle, and then in the battle for the Philippines, they killed the 2 regiments of the Philippine Division. So the Philippine Division has been wiped out, along with the air assets that the United States had in the Philippines. Though the Philippine defenders didn't go down without a fight, they ended up taking out the Japanese infantry and cost Japan a strategic bomber. And then finally, for the coup de grace, Airsoft Commando basically decided that it was going to be an America First strategy this time around. It wasn't an entire surprise, considering what he had done by positioning his entire fleet up here in Japan. He went down and launched Pearl Harbor. And not just Pearl Harbor, but as you can see, he's got troops out here on the transports preparing for the invasion of Hawaii next turn. So the very extended battle of Pearl Harbor and the sea around the Hawaiian Islands, the United States ended up losing a sub, 2 destroyers, 2 cruisers. They lost the aircraft carriers, USS Lexington and the USS Enterprise. Then they also lost the battleship Missouri. And then they lost 2 transports, 4 fighters, and a tactical. However, the United States still kind of tried to give as good as they got. They killed a Japanese submarine, 4 destroyers, a carrier, a fighter, and a tactical. So as you can see, what's left is the Japanese have 4 cruisers, 2 damaged battleships, and 2 fully loaded carriers, and they also have on ship they have 3 infantry, 2 artillery, and a tank ready to make landfall against the forces here in Hawaii. So, I mean, as we can see, the vestiges of the Hawaiian division are very much looking outnumbered. Hopefully, on their defense, they'll be able to get some good hits. Hopefully. All right, so that was it for their combats. Non-combats, Japan didn't really do much with their non-combats other than rebasing all of their aircraft from all the rebasing all their aircraft. Italy didn't have much to do. They pushed some troops. They pushed troops from Greece into Bulgaria. Moved that artillery into Romania, and then consolidated their army here in Alexandria. Germany just they moved these 6 tanks out from Germany into the Baltics, just trying to get forces pushed east as quick as possible to reinforce the vestiges of the German army that are pretty much bleeding here in the east. All right, so purchases. All right, so Germany had 45 to spend. They bought 3 infantry, 3 artillery, and a fighter up in Berlin. And then they also bought 2 infantry and 2 artillery for West Germany. And then at the end of the turn, Germany collected 44 IPC plus 10 for bonuses. However, this Soviet sub up here was able to convoy Norway for 2 IPC. So in the end, Germany collected 52 IPC. Italy. All right, Italy had 20 IPC to spend. They bought 3 infantry for southern France. And then bought a fighter down here in southern France, or in southern Italy. They saved 1 IPC, and at the end of the turn they collected 17 plus the one they saved, and they got 18. Japan. Gotta be careful here. Alright, Japan had 48 to spend. They bought 3 tanks for Shanghai, and then up in Japan they bought 2 destroyers and a fighter. They saved 4 IPC, and at the end of the turn, Japan collected 37 plus the 4 they saved, giving them 41. As far as I can tell, yes, Japan has no bonuses yet this turn. All right, so that is it for the Axis. Again, things seem to be, I don't want to say petering out in both North Africa and Russia, because that very much could change depending on how the Allied turn goes. While the Japanese are scoring victories in China and against the U.S. in the Pacific, they've definitely set back the U.S. war effort in the Pacific, which could also a setback in the Pacific does mean potential setbacks of the U.S. sending major involvements into Europe. So we'll just have to see just how bad the setbacks go. All right, so that's it for the Axis, and we'll see you guys next time for the Allies. So until then, guys, as always, take care.